Ah, Cyrene, so precious, so beautiful. Yes, she's probably going to die in the story. Before that happens though, I've prepared a guide for you. Welcome to my Cyrene guide, where I'll be bringing you through everything you need to know to get it ready. I'll have more emphasis on the team comp since they'll probably help you out the most. But yeah, everything's here from the Create Experience server though. With the boring part out the way, let's get into the even more boring part. Her kit. Feel free to use the timestamps to navigate through the chapters. We'll start with a summary of her role. Cyrene is a general buffer for mainly the Chrysos heir. Her kit's entire design is to gain her ultimate by having your team take their turns. The more Chrysos heir you have from your team, the more outcharge you can start with, and the more Memo Sprite and Chrysos heir you have on your team, the more outcharge you can gain throughout the fight. Once you do use Cyrene's ultimate, you unlock a buffing skill that provides different buffs to different Chrysos heirs, while enhancing Cyrene's own damage output significantly. She's a jack of all trades buffer with quite the high damage to boot, a valid pull for any players wishing to use her in a Chrysos heir team. The issue with Cyrene is that her first ultimate usage will cost 24 outcharges, and that takes a long time to obtain, and that is the main cause of her to generally not bring much of an improvement to most existing teams, although she can certainly at least function up to par. This means you can expect Cyrene to perform at about the same level as the current Chrysos heir teams. For a direct example, Cyrene, Evernight, Castorice, Hyacinth would be slightly faster than having a Tribi in this team, but the difference is negligible. Cyrene, Ceredra, Phainon, and Danheng PT's performance will nearly be identical compared to using Sunday, except you have more planning to do now to make sure Cyrene gets her ult as soon as possible. Over a longer period of time though, Cyrene does perform better with Phainon, given Phainon will be permanently in his ultimate, but for a game like Sorrel, you usually don't want to be in the fight for too long. For all the other Chrysos heirs, based on my testing, Cyrene with main DPS and Axa sees a slight improvement, especially against enemies with CCs that can mess his action order up. Cyrene Mighty sees a solid improvement, solving Mighty's slower damage output. Cyrene Hyacinth sees a slight improvement, with the slower first ult holding it back the most. Cyrene Aglaia sees a solid improvement too, since you're able to provide Aglaia with massive energy consistently, making her team much more stable. Do note that all these teams owe a lot of their performance to the rest of the supports like Tribi or even Hyacinth, which are capable of buffing damage and gaining outcharge for Cyrene way faster. This is why, in my opinion, there are no absolute urgency to pull Cyrene, and the recommended answer that I would give is to save for version 4 with the new archetypes that could just be more broken. That is, unless you're looking to free up your existing supports that are used in multiple teams, or if you just love Cyrene with all your heart. That's absolutely valid. Cyrene can absolutely pull her weight in this team if you do decide to slot her in, and for people that are looking for strictly meta value, Cyrene's E2 essentially solves her slow activation problem, and that will be what you'll want to grab. Then you'll see a significant increase in performance across all Cyrene teams, and she'll definitely be involved at least E2 in one of the strongest team in the meta available right now. Now then, let's dive deeper into her kit. It seems ridiculously long, but don't worry, it's a lot simpler than you'd think. The main mechanic of Cyrene revolves around turning the future state on your allies into recollection points, which is Cyrene's ult charge. Reaching 24 ult charge unlocks her first ultimate, and using each of her ult only costs 12 points off ult charge after that. In order to gain these ult charges, Cyrene's talent provides all other ally characters, including their memo sprites, to gain the future state at the start of combat or when she takes an action. When your ally with the future state take action, the state is converted into one ult charge for Cyrene. Taking action here means using your basic, skill, ultimate, or even follow-up attacks. The future state on your allies will disappear after converting it to an ult charge, but the future state on a memo sprite will not disappear. That is exactly why memo sprites are able to gain Cyrene's ult charge way faster than anyone else. On top of that, Cyrene's basic can gain her 1 ult charge. Her skill can gain her 3 ult charge, and an enhanced basic after her first ultimate gains her 3 ult charge. Once you gain enough ult charge, Cyrene's first ult usage will activate all allies' ultimate and summon Cyrene's memo sprite, which is essentially herself. Her memo sprite is considered out of bounds and shares the same HP change as Cyrene. Sounds confusing, I know, but really just think of the memo sprite as an enhancement to Cyrene. After using Cyrene's ultimate, the memo sprite gains her turn immediately, and here's where you can choose between 2 memo sprite skills. The one below is a simple AoE attack based on HP, and the one above is a single target buff for an ally of your choice. This is the exact buff that provides different effects based on which Chrysos heir is being targeted. If you buff a non-Chrysos heir, you provide a simple 40% damage boost, which is not too valuable at all. And now for the convoluted part. Cyrene provides different buffs to all different Chrysos heirs. I'll be going through them very quickly in summary. Starting with the damage dealers, Castorice gets a buff that's effective for the whole battle. Her ult charge can now get up to 200%, and the explosion from the dragon gets up to 24% damage multiplier increase. If there are 2 or fewer enemies, the multiplier increase gets even higher. If all the criteria are met, you can expect a slightly higher damage output by getting to 200% 100% ult charge than simply using the ult twice. Overall, it is a buff, but nothing too over the top. Phainon's buff will stay for the whole battle, where he'll gain 16% crit rate and up to 72% crit damage buff. Also, he will no longer exit his ult state unless he runs out of HP. He also deals additional fire damage in exchange for some of his own HP. It's a buff that gets better the longer the battle goes, since you simply do not exit his ultimate, but generally speaking, the difference between his previous team and this one wouldn't be too big that you have to pull Cyrene. Next off, Aglaia. She gets a one-time buff where she gains the romantic state. This state converts into 70 energy after Aglaia or Garment Maker attacks. This solves Aglaia's energy issues significantly and keeps her in her ult state, which is the secret to making sure Aglaia does a lot of damage. She and her Memo Sprite also gain 72% damage increase and 36% defense ignore, which only disappears if Aglaia exits her ult state. Overall, a very solid buff for Aglaia, especially if she's not able to stay in her ult form for the whole fight previously. If you're an Aglaia main and you struggle with keeping her in your ult while you somehow don't have Sunday or you don't have E1, Cyrene becomes an actual worthy pull. However, do note that Aglaia is definitely not the strongest team of all time right now. Next up, we've got Mighty. His buff is a one-time buff where it says if he's in Vendetta state, he will perform Godslayer Be God instantly without consuming any charge the moment Cyrene buffs him. Plus, he also gains a big 200% crit damage during this attack. If you're out of Vendetta, you gain 100% action advance instead. It's a great buff overall to increase his damage output. If you're a Mighty main, it's actually worth it to pick her up, but then Mighty on his own, again, is not the strongest team of all time. Next up, we've got Anaxa. He gets a one-time effect where he'll get one skill point immediately the moment Cyrene buffs him. After that, Anaxa takes action immediately. His skill damage instances are increased for one turn, and the next time he uses his basic or skill, he'll gain the True Knowledge state, which increases the attack of erudition characters by 60% and skill damage by 40% until the start of its next turn. This effect is great for main DPS Anaxa and solid for the Herda with sub DPS Anaxa too, but the Herda not being a Chrysos Heir makes it less ideal. And those are all the main DPS. Moving on are the sub DPS, like Evernight. She gets a damage dealt increase on her Memo Sprite skill and 1 extra Memoria points after every skill or ultimate use. Her crit damage boost effect from her skill is also further increased by 12% of her own crit damage, making it a very all-encompassing buff. It increases her own damage and her buffing capabilities all at once. Moving on would be High Silence. It is a one-time effect where she gains Flowing Warmth state. Similar to Aglaia, High Silence will consume this state after she attacks and regenerates 60 energy. With her low energy cost of 110 to use her ultimate, this makes it so you can use her ult way more. The other effects last for the whole battle, where she gains a massive 120% increased damage dealt. Not only that, her basic and skill can now activate the dots currently on the enemy, similar to Kafka. This effectively makes her better at everything, enough to be even treated as a main dot DPS without the help of Kafka, one of the best effects on the list. Next up, we have the supports. Treaty's buff lasts for the whole battle, where she gains 12% defense ignore. She also deals 1 extra instance of additional damage on her follow-up attack when her zone is active. This is like a minor effect from Triby's second Eidolon, a simple and welcome buff. Saredra's buff lasts for the whole fight, where she provides 30% extra crit damage for the character that Saredra buffs. After replicating a skill, Saredra also gains 1 point of charge, meaning you lower the charge count needed for the next replication. A very solid buff overall. Cypher's buff is simple. She does more damage, she decreases more defense, all by a solid amount, but nothing else. RMC gets a buff that lasts for the whole fight, where RMC will gain increased attack and crit rate based on Cyrene's own stats. After RMC uses the enhanced basic, Cyrene will also gain 1 extra turn and use the enhanced AoE attack. This one's not too crazy, but you do more damage overall for the whole team. And finally, we have the sustains. Hyacinth does not even need to be targeted by Cyrene. Her effect is automatically available whenever Cyrene is on the field. When Cyrene uses a Memo Sprite skill, Hyacinth will gain 2 stacks of Ode to Sky. This increases the healing value of Lil Ika's Memo Sprite skill by 72%. Now, if you do target Hyacinth anyway, you can gain 24 energy for Hyacinth too. Its free value overall, no complaints there. As for Danheng PT, similar to Hyacinth, he gets a passively available effect without needing to even target him. When Cyrene uses her Memo Sprite skill, Danheng gets Ode to Earth. The next 3 attacks of Soul Dragon will deal additional damage based on the bondmate's type equal to 80% of the shield's effect. On top of that, the bondmate also deals 24% more damage. Now, if you do target Danheng PT anyway with Cyrene's buff, the Soul Dragon gets 100% action advance, it will deal its enhanced attack and gain extra shield. Those are all for the buffs for her allies, but she actually also has a buff for herself. You don't have to target herself, obviously you cannot do that anyway. After Cyrene gains collection from each different teammate, she'll deal an additional instance of ice damage when she uses her enhanced AoE attack. This means you can get up to 6 additional damage instances if your whole team has memo sprites, since they are all considered as a different teammate. On top of that, after Cyrene uses her ult, she gains 1 story point. After reaching 3 story points, she consumes them for an extra turn, and she uses her enhanced AoE attack. The next part here will be all about Cyrene's general buffs. By using her first ultimate, her skill's zone will last for the whole battle. Her zone triggers 1 additional instance of 24% true damage for each instance of damage dealt by all allies. Her talent also allows 20% damage increase for the whole team if she reaches 180 speed, and her bonus ability provides 2% ice res pen for every point of speed above 180 for Cyrene herself, up to a maximum of 60 exceeded speed points. The final buffing effect she has is with her ultimate, where Cyrene and her memo sprite will gain 24% max HP increase and 50% crit rate upon using the ultimate. Her final bonus ability provides Cyrene with up to 6 extra ult charges at the start of combat based on the number of Chrysos Air or Remembrance Path characters you have on the team. You usually want to always max this one out. And finally, we're done with her kit. It's pretty lengthy mainly because of all the custom buffs she provides, but to conclude on her playstyle though, you want to pretty much prioritize maxing her ult charges as fast as possible. And based on her kit and various effects, you can do that by putting her alongside Chrysos Air and especially memo sprite characters. Using her with a Castorice, Evernight, and Hyacinth team allows Cyrene to gain her first ult incredibly fast due to all the memo sprite helping her gain charges, and thereafter, Cyrene's tempo gets way faster given she only needs to spend 12 ult charge for her ult after the first one. She boasts solid buffs for all Chrysos Air teams and great damage output too. The only real issue is getting her first ult to be ready as soon as possible. With all the kit out the way though, let's finally look at her builds. The main stat line you want to achieve is the 180 speed in order to activate her 20% damage increase buff. But if you do want to make sure Cyrene can get her 3rd turn in the first cycle with no external help, I do recommend hitting 200 speed at least. Given Cyrene's main job is a support, all other stats should come as a lesser priority. Her best in slot set would be the World Remaking Deliverer set, but if you aren't able to reach her ideal speed for your account, do note that speed tuning is definitely just based on your own account though. If 180 works for you, just stick to that. You can go for 2-piece Messenger and 2-piece Sacerdos in order to reach a higher speed point that you would like. That will most certainly work better than using the World Remaking set, just so you can reach a good speed point that you want to work with. Her best ornament set would be the Amphorius The Eternal Land set. Alternatively, you can go for the Bone Collection set or even the Von Wach set to get that extra action advance at the start of battle to make sure you get your ult off without spending the first cycle. In terms of main stats, go for critical damage body. HP percent also works as well, and the difference will not be too big. Speed boots will be mandatory, HP or ice damage orb, and then a HP rope will be the way to go. In terms of light cone, it will be similar to how you think about her build. You want to reach your ideal speed target first, which obviously her own light cone that provides speed buff is the best in slot. Now alternatively, you can go for Hyacinth's light cone, then Aglaea's light cone, and then consider the Herda Store 5-star light cone. All of them have speed increase, which is the most important stat for Cyrene. The big difference between the Herda Store light cone and her own signature will mainly be Cyrene's own damage output. By considering version 4 is coming, I do recommend just sticking with the Herda Store light cone. In fact, even if you are to hard invest in her, you should be prioritizing her E2 first. But well, more about her Eidolons later. Now then, let's get into her team comps. Since there's way too many possible teams to be played in, we'll be picking out a few interesting ones. But if you're interested in any specific characters, you can go through my channel. I should have done a lot of showcases for each team there. But yep, for this one though, let's just talk about the best Cyrene teams. Her best teams in my opinion will be Cyrene, Evernight, Castorice, and Hyacinth. On top of that one would be Cyrene, Saridra, Phainon, and Danheng PT. The first team's obvious. Castorice, Evernight, and Hyacinth is already busted enough, and Tribby can more than enough cover Cyrene's spot in this team. Given everyone has a memo sprite in this team, Cyrene is able to get her first ultimate without much of a hassle, and once she does, Castorice gets a great boost, Evernight does well, and it's just all a straight wipe with the enemies from there. Cyrene being in here though specifically boosts Castorice's single or dual target damage capabilities, where it could be very helpful for scenarios where the boss are whittled down to the point where he is alone with one singular mob and will simply do more focused damage on them. But as mentioned before, the difference in clear time between Cyrene with this team and Tribby with this team is not too big at all at the same level of investment, specifically with E1S0 Tribby. But that does not mean Cyrene is not good with Castorice though. She performs absolutely wonderfully in this team. While it's not only because Cyrene exists that this team's strong, she simply pulls her weight. Looking at Phainon's team though, this team performs similarly to using a Sunday instead really. In exchange for not needing to use your second ult with Phainon at all, you do have to try your best and get Cyrene's ult ready in the first cycle for the best performance. The logic behind this team is that you don't have to focus on Phainon's ult, rather you should just focus on Cyrene's ult since she'll provide your whole team with a free ultimate right after using her own ultimate. So get her ult to max, then Phainon will be able to get to use his ult instantly too. And the moment you do that, you don't have to worry about Phainon's ult anymore because he will not exit it. That's the main value of this team. A good trick to do is to save some of your allies' ultimate, like say with Cyrene. If she already has converted her future state to Cyrene's ult charge this turn, you can hold the ult until Cyrene takes action again, which regains the future state for all your allies, and then you can use the ult from your ally to convert the future state right away into Cyrene's ult charge. Since this team is a one and done where the moment you activate Cyrene's ult into Phainon's ult, you don't have your team anymore, it's just gonna be Phainon. You don't really have to worry about after the first cycle how you can get more Cyrene ult charge because it's never gonna come to pass since Phainon will be stuck with you in his ultimate without exiting ever unless he dies. After you activate Phainon's ultimate, go ahead and spam his attacks. He'll no longer leave it and you'll stay until you beat the enemy. Cyrene can most certainly replace Sunday in this team if that is what you're looking to do, but they certainly have two different playstyles. Now the two teams I've mentioned so far are considered the best teams in the whole game currently, and yep, Cyrene can fit herself right into them. But do not expect her to reinvent the tier list or break the meta. Do expect her to function absolutely fine in these teams though. The rest of her teams are essentially all Chrysos Air teams. I've showcased most of them on the channel, from the Dot High Cylons to Mighty Tribute, and the overarching expectations are simple. Cyrene works well with Chrysos Air teams, none of them really stands out as meta breaking though, and most see slight improvements or negligible difference in performance, with some niche scenarios being very worth it, like say you pulled your Aglaia without a Sunday and still you couldn't get her E1, which causes her to get out of her ultimate all the time. First of all, why would you do that? You would probably have pulled a Sunday if you're trying to play Aglaia, but if you somehow do that, yeah, Cyrene becomes a really good character because she will be the new Sunday to your Aglaia. However though, that's a very niche scenario. With the team comps finally out the way, let's take a look at her Eidolons now. Her E1 gains you 6 ult charge when she uses her enhanced area attack triggered by her own ode. You also increase the number of bounces of this attack by 12, and yeah, overall it's a damage increase for only Cyrene herself. It does not solve the biggest activation issue for her first ultimate, since you only get to trigger this after using her ult in the first place. So yes, while the damage increase is great, it's just not worth getting an E1 and stopping right there. The big reason for that is because with E2, you can get 12 free ult charge just by entering combat. Not only that, for each different ally character that gains Cyrene's Memo Sprite skill buff, her zone's true damage instance will see an increase, to a maximum of a 24% increase. The damage increase is great, but the real big effect is with the 12 free ult charge at the start of combat. This contributes to high tempo at the start of battle, where you get your first ult in very short time, and you can aggressively burst down the first wave way quicker, especially with the early team-wide ult activation effect from Cyrene. It's recommended to pull this if you're looking to significantly increase all the Chrysos Air teams and chase for the strongest team possible right at this moment, considering right now the strongest teams would just be Castorice or Phainon, but do know that there are no guarantee for how much longer the strongest teams right now would stay. If you really want the absolute best team ever, then waiting for version 4 might be the wiser. Next up, we got her E4, which allows Cyrene to deal more damage. The more you do her AoE attack, the more damage she deals in the long run. Not the most important Eidolon for a support Cyrene, but if you wanted to become a main DPS worthy character, E4 is the way to go. Now then, E6 is the FU Eidolon. When Cyrene uses her ult for the first time, all allies' action are advanced by 100%. Each time Cyrene triggers her own O's AoE attack, she gains more buffing effects. You can get a 20% defense reduction on all enemies. If she uses it twice or more, it'll advance all allies' action by 24%. The various action advances allows for a lot of crazy speedy plays and clears. It's like she suddenly got half of Robin's kit and 1/3 of a Dance 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 Lightcone. It's worth going for if you're a whale like that and if you're looking to just clear stuff very quickly and you want the meta stuff, the strongest stuff ever. And that will be all for my Cyrene guide. It's a pretty long one and it took me a long time to do everything, but I helped you out though. And that'll be all for now. Do expect more content coming soon and take care.